All right, that worked. I'm gonna just open up where it says participants so that you guys can help me look if anybody's in the waiting room, because otherwise I'll start doing everything Sunday morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Good.
It's winter.
It is fun. Yeah, it happens. Welcome back. Glad you came back. Yes. Oh, somebody else was here and they didn't go. And we'll see how many people come. It's still early. Yes, we'll wait another 5 minutes. Then we'll start. Quick pace, get the whole life cycle done in an hour.
Speed run.
Speed life cycle, speed life, however that turns out to be. Pencils or paper. There's always pencils and paper. Use that or not. How are you doing? Good.
It's open enrollment. Yeah, it's open. So yeah,
Oh my God. 2 minutes. Yeah. Happens something in the moment.
But I also didn't want to create a plan. Because what is secret.
It's 7:16, we're gonna go ahead and start. Give everybody 1 minute and not sit, then we're gonna start. So welcome. Nice to see everybody.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna talk life cycle tonight. So what's involved in life cycle? What does that mean? Thank you. So it's the whole cycle of life, so we're marking it, so it seems as though every different community, every different religion, every different culture has some sort of ritual, some sort of way to mark at least some of the life cycle events. And we're gonna look at what we do as Jews, very simply. Some of it, you know, some of it, some of you may have experienced, some of it you may have seen, and some may be brand new. So we're gonna start with some pictures. This is why I'm kind of glad no one is on Zoom, because otherwise I'd have to hold them all up to the, because I didn't bring it to share. I didn't want to share on the screen. I've got, and I picked 18 because 18 is a good number, because it is, why do we like 18 as Jews?
They're all fine.
18 is high. 18 is just high. Like it teaches if I have my word. So if we look in Hebrew, little mini Hebrew lesson. In Hebrew, every letter has a numerical equivalent, starting with Aleph as 1 and going all the way up. So if we look at this word, Chai, we've got 2 letters, even if you can't read them. You can actually give it a vowel as well. Chai. This is a chet, and a chet has a numerical equivalent of 8. And this is a yud, and it has a numerical equivalent of 10. So we put them together, and we get 18. Does anybody know what the word chai means? Life. Chai, like chayim. Chai is life. So we like to do things in multiples of 18, because especially for having life cycle, we have to do something in a multiple of 18, because it represents life. Often people will give donations in a multiple of 18, 36, 54, 72, going on, because it's relates to life, and is it just kind of, it's a good little thing. See necklaces that say hi for life. So I wanted to find some pictures, so when I didn't stop at 2 or 3, I went all the way to 18. Randomly, what? We do have somebody joining us. Okay. Thank you, because I wouldn't have known some stuff. Okay, so that means we'll have to work with her. That's okay. Hi, Nancy.
Hi there.
Hi, Nancy. So we're talking life cycle tonight. We're gonna go through the life cycle in an hour, but we're gonna start with some pictures. So, we'll have to figure out how we can share some of them with you, because I have the pictures like this as pictures.
Okay.
But we'll figure that out. So I don't know why it switched. I guess we still have the owl, but I didn't pin her. Okay, that's all right. We're okay with that. Okay, so I'm gonna pass these pictures out. And some of them, Nancy, I'll sit with you and show you.
Okay.
Okay, because we're gonna pass them around and everyone's gonna get them. I randomly numbered them. But you're gonna look at the picture, see if you recognize anything. And if you can either take a paper and mark down the numbers on your own, or you can take a pencil somewhere and write write your notes on right here on the front or the back of these pages, or make a list for yourself of all of the pictures and your thoughts. So you're gonna see one of them, and this is the first one. I don't know, can you see it, Nancy, there?
Somebody, is it a bar mitzvah?
Well, we're not gonna talk about what they're, we're just looking for.
You can see.
You can see it better, but we're gonna, go through them, and you're gonna write down your thoughts, what you think it might be, if it's
Oh.
something you recognize, that's okay. That's okay. So Nancy, if you wanna grab a piece of paper, then you can take notes and we can then share. It's all fine. It's all good. But I've got paper, or you can just write like on the back of the picture, and you can kind of continue after someone else. So there, you may not get them in order. I'm actually gonna shuffle them up. They're numbered 1 to 18, but I'm kind of shuffling them just a little bit. And then everyone will get one. When you're finished with the one that you have, pass it to, we'll go that way. Just pass it along. And here, I can take these with me, because if anybody needs paper or pencil. Okay. So we'll kind of slide those on. You can grab a pencil if you want one. You're starting with this one. And so the numbers are kind of arbitrary, but you can see what number, which way we're passing that one? We're gonna pass them that way. This one, yeah. This is for notes. Talk about them yet, but if it helps to talk with someone, you can. Or else just take some notes and then we'll kind of go from there. And some of you are gonna end up with more than one, because I'm just gonna keep passing them out until all 18 are passed around. Okay, and I'm gonna show you another one, Nancy, as we go. Can you see it? Just shake your head if you can see it. Is that too hard to see? What about this one? Is that one easier for you?
No, I can't see it.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay. I'll listen.
Okay, well, how about that one?
I can see that.
Okay, good. So that one is number 18. So you can just, all right, and then. Here it is. So you might get more than one, to keep passing them around. I'm gonna give you a second one, give you another one.
Yeah.
There, you're getting an extra one. Give you guys some extra ones. Actually, switch there. And then I'll give you 2 more, so you'll get some extras for when you're done with those. Another one there. And if in the end you don't see all of them, that's okay too. to take them. Okay, good. I'll just sit. See if they're done. And I may take the next couple that you have to move over there to them.
Wait, this one.
That's okay. Okay, and then there's more, wherever we have, need some more. We'll just throw out some more. Do you guys need another one? Another one just for over here, and then you can just keep passing them around. There's another one coming somewhere for whoever needs it. Another one over here. And then again, in the end, you probably we won't have everybody look at all 18 of them, but. Yeah, if they haven't seen it, thank you, since you're getting up. Absolutely.
I saw that one already. This one's.
Have you seen this one yet?
That's fine.
Hope you're not too bored, Nancy, but we'll all gather back together very soon, after they're done with the pictures. Okay? I hope.
Putting at some 10 and 11.
So,
9, 16, 7. I've seen those ones. Okay, so we're must be getting closer to the end if there are some that everybody has seen. Guess it has 10 and 11.
Oh, good.
Passing that now, and that, when they're all done, have you seen, I've got here 15, 3, and 1, have you seen?
Yeah.
No, okay,
Oh, okay, sorry.
okay, the 10 and 11.
Oh, yes, I have.
Okay. Okay, so then they're all kind of
I
coming.
haven't seen that.
Okay, so we're all mixed up, that's okay.
Yeah.
16.
I have 17. Oh, we did. Okay.
Which ones are you missing?
I don't know. 16. 4 and
16, I have 15.
We have 16 here.
Okay.
4.
And in the end, if you don't see them.
Yeah, 4 and 16.
Okay.
16 over here. This is, yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, if there's some that have been done with, you can pass them back and we can start talking about them. I have 10 and 11, those came back to me. 10 and 11.
Yeah, I think 5. Okay.
I said 1 and 15 if you need those.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
You might-
My bad.
That's okay. This is interesting. Even though I know. Very true. Even though, even if I throw it out, you don't have to know it. Okay, so now we can kind of gather back. And we can talk about these. I'm gonna just kind of stick them in order so we can do this quickly, because there's a lot of other things, of course, that I want to do tonight. And we'll get through some of it, but probably not all, because we never do. There's still a couple of pictures out there. Either that or did I miscalculate number? No, they're just in a different order. Yeah, they're just not in order. That's okay. So what did you notice about the pictures? Were there things that you knew? Were there things you didn't know? Were there some of them that were really easy to identify? Some you could maybe identify, but you didn't know why they were there? Okay, so what did we see? You saw a bar mitzvah, okay.
Saw people sitting Shiva.
People sitting Shiva. Mhm. And we'll talk about what that is if we don't know. What else did we see?
Couple wedding photos.
Some wedding photos, uh-huh.
Also, the candle, so Yisker candle.
Mm-hmm, I used her candle, your side, it said,
Yours, like, candle.
yeah, well, it's,
You always got the electric light one.
I, when my parents passed away, I got the electric one, because it, yeah, it makes things easier sometimes.
Several related to either burial,
Mhm.
funeral, or visiting.
Burial, funeral, visiting, yes.
Shiva.
Hmm, what is,
The Shiva.
the Shiva, yeah, there was a Shiva.
There was a get.
There was a get, and if you don't know what that is, we'll talk about that. Mhm. And a ketubah, yeah, kind of one on either end of that spectrum.
Or baby namings and maybe brisses in there. I kept
Yes,
calling
baby naming,
bris.
yes, a baby naming and a bris. Sometimes it's hard to identify the baby. So we have some things from all over the life cycle. So let's kind of go through and fill in the pieces that are missing with what we know and what we don't know and what we would like to know, and of course, questions about life cycle events. So we always start at the beginning. So the beginning of a life cycle event is, there's like the birth, yes, easy things. So what's traditionally done? Do we know?
Naming the baby.
Naming the baby. So this is any baby. All babies are named, and when they're named, they're given a Hebrew name. And traditionally, what's the baby named for?
Yeah.
If you are Ashkenazi in tradition, meaning your ancestors are European, Eastern European, then you name the baby for someone who has passed away. Interestingly, the Sephardic tradition, so descendants of Jews who were expelled from Spain, who settled, they're often, thought of as Spain, but they settled in Italy, they settled in the Mideast. We also sometimes lump those indigenous Middle Eastern Jews as Sephardic, even though we really should call them Mizrahi. But the traditions are the same from the Sephardi and the Mizrahi, and that they'll often name the baby after a living relative. And Ashkenazi Jews are kind of horrified when you want to name a baby for a living relative, because you don't want to, that evil eye. When there is a time when we do folklore, when one of the nights I get to teach is about folklore. We'll talk more about the evil eye, but you're always worried, and there's so much superstition. But the Ashkenazi Jews have this superstition: you don't want to name someone for a living relative because that person then might die. But the Sephardim want to honor their living relatives, and they'll name a baby for them. But the Sephardim, and the Mizrahi Jews will not do something for the baby beforehand. They're not going to go out and buy things for the baby. They're not going to tell anyone what name they might give the baby, because that's the superstition that if you do too much for the baby, then the baby's going to die. So we've got superstitions on both sides, which we'll delve into whatever week that is I get to teach that. And we have honoring family members on both sides, both traditions. Yeah.
I just have a comment about naming. I was very clearly Ashkenazi, and I don't know what the roots of my Hebrew name, or like where it came from,
Mhm.
but I was pretty surprised when my kids started coming here and they get to pick their own name. I mean, we had not given them Hebrew names because pretty much when all of them were born, we weren't necessarily, but is that Where did that come from?
That came from the fact that they were in fourth grade and they got some ownership in that. And it was like in the fourth grade, at Temple Sinai, in fourth grade, they do Jewish life cycle. And so they used to go through a naming, I don't think they do it now, but they would go through a naming and teach kids about the naming, and if they didn't have their own Hebrew name yet, then the families and the kids had some say into choosing their Hebrew name.
Okay, so it's not across the board, it's.
No, it was a Temple Sinai tradition, and I didn't teach stuff fourth grade, so I wasn't involved in that. Yeah.
I've always said I don't think I have a Hebrew name, I'll just say that. I
Okay,
have a Yiddish name.
which,
That-
you know, a Jewish
because
name, they give you a Jewish
I
name,
have a
some, we can do that, because the word Yiddish actually means
Yiddish.
Jewish, so. There are a lot of families that they, you know, they don't necessarily have a Hebrew name, but they have a Yiddish name, but it's your name, yes, being named for someone, and
Cause I
so.
remember when I was really little, like, well, they can't be your Hebrew name. I'm like, it's Sori Alta, and that is who I am, you know?
Mhm.
And I mean, but I had family that was not speaking English, and they came here, and they spoke Yiddish, and that
Yeah.
was my name.
And that's your name, yeah. You know, we all have lots of names that we go through in our lives. Some we choose and some are given to us. So it can follow along with this as well. So back to kind of keep an eye on our time, because we could go off, and we will, but that's fine. Brit Milah. Traditionally, baby boys on the 8th day after their birth, or when they are 8 days old, if they are healthy, are going through Brit Milah. So what is Brit Milah? The word Brit means covenant. The word Milah means circumcision. So it's this covenant of circumcision, and where does it come from, and what's it all about? Comes from Torah.
Comes from Torah, one of the first things that God said, that to be identified as people,
Mhm.
the man must be circumcised.
Well, to be identified as Abraham, so Abraham, this was the Torah portion 2 weeks ago, the portion Lech Lecha. Abraham is told, because Abraham is the first one to make a covenant with God. And the covenant that he's going to be this great nation, and he's going to be the one who's believing in God and passing that tradition on. And Abraham is as a sign of the covenant is this circumcision. And Abraham circumcised, according to Torah, circumcised himself. He was an adult. He was and then it becomes major surgery, but that's another thing. But boys at 8 days old are circumcised, and it comes right from Abraham. From then on, Abraham to circumcise himself, his son Ishmael, Isaac wasn't yet born, and all the males of his household, as a sign of the covenant.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
the 8th day, is the first day that they're born considered day 1?
Yes. Yes.
So
So,
it's 7 days after they were born
well, it's on the 8th day.
of life. Yes, okay.
Yeah, the 8th day of life. If they're healthy, because if a baby's not health, with everything that we do, health comes first. So if the baby's not healthy, then that would be postponed. And traditionally, we have a moil, who is the ritual circumciser. And many of them are trained physicians who've also gone through the training to become a ritual circumciser. But even those that aren't a medical doctor have had enough training that they're allowed to do this, and they can see if a child isn't healthy. If they're not a medical doctor, they can't diagnose what's wrong with the kid, but they know what to look for to make sure that the baby is healthy. Because it is still, even though the baby's 8 days old and it's minor, it's still, for a baby, it's a big thing. For the mom, it's a big thing. I have 2 sons. For the mom, it's a really big. Yeah. So Brit Milah, that's the thing. babies named at the same time. So then the giving of a name is really important. So for some, you don't give the baby any name until the Brit Milah. My niece, one of my nieces, just had her third baby, on the 11th of October. And so they didn't, and her husband is Moroccan, they live in Israel, her husband is Moroccan, so they don't, and, so lots of superstition, didn't do anything beforehand, my sister wants to, she's buying stuff and hiding it, and she's doing all this other stuff, but, and when my niece's first child, who was also a boy, was born, my sister was like wanted to do so much, but she had she couldn't tell her daughter what she was doing, and they wouldn't, so there would the baby was just baby until, or whatever they, cooing at him until his Brit Milah, and then he got named.
Kind of problematic in American medicine.
Yeah, well, you'd have to, but in America, you're gonna give the kid an English name. So you can give that would be my niece lives in Israel, so there's only one name for the kid, so he's not giving a name. But they probably would just not reveal the Hebrew name yet, and where you have to fill out the form, and that's, yes, we have to follow all the rules.
Would that ever be put on a birth certificate, the Hebrew name?
It could be, it depends on what name you want to give the child and what you want the child to grow up as. And there are a lot of Hebrew names that work everywhere.
Yeah.
Or you give your child whatever name you want. Yeah. You don't have to give a separate name, no, that's tradition. But girls are no less honored, or we don't rejoice any less when a baby girl is born. And today there are celebrations for a baby girl with a baby naming, but there's also, people can do a brit bat, so it is a covenant like of the daughter. And there are other things that have come up to recognize. You can do it anytime, it's not specifically the age. But we wanna acknowledge and honor the birth of all the babies. All right, so birth, we're gonna jump ahead, because otherwise we won't get all the way to the end of the life cycle. So coming of age, and I promised you last week we would talk about this. So coming of age, we think of the bar bat mitzvah, but we have to have a story first, because the story is good. And we can take our story, our basis of our story, from Torah. So we have two people at the beginning of our story. We'll give them names. We'll call them Adam, we'll call them Eve. And when they come into the world, they're fully formed. Do they have a childhood? No, they have no childhood. It's as if when they're in the Garden of Eden, everything is taken care of for them. It's kind of like a childhood, but not. But they come into this garden and everything's done for them. Everything is there. It's all really great. And they get a rule. They only get one rule. Don't eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. It's not the tree of life. It's don't eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. Well, they had no real whole bunch of rules and to be put in, in their place. They had no childhood. But even children, when they have this idyllic time when everything's taken care of for them, when they start getting rules that they have to follow, what happens?
They break them.
They often rebel and they break them, or they test them. So here are Adam and Eve, they have one rule. And they test the rule. Why not? What's wrong with that fruit? So they eat the fruit. And what happens as you grow up and you break a rule? Consequences, exactly. You face those consequences.
Yeah.
So for Adam and Eve, when they ate that fruit, they had to face consequences. And those consequences were taking responsibility for their actions. Those consequences were, okay, I'm not gonna do everything for you anymore. You're gonna have to go out and you're gonna have to start working the land yourself. Go get a job. You wanna eat the fruit that I told you not to do? Well, now it's like you're grown up already. Go out and get a job. Okay, go out and work the land. One interpretation, and the one that I really like, of the story of Adam and Eve. It's not this great sin. It's testing the rules, and they now have to take responsibility for their action. It's a coming of age story. Because they have no childhood. They have no time when they accept responsibility. But our bar and bat mitzvah is the time now when a young person is going to start taking responsibility. When we look at the world today, age 13 is not necessarily grown up. Time to go out and work the land and get your job. Maybe thousands of years ago, a 13-year-old had a lot more responsibility. But even so today, someone who is 13, it's time for them to start taking responsibility for their actions. Maybe not to go out and start driving, and not to go out and get a job and take care of themselves on their own, but to start taking responsibility for their actions. And that's the essence of bar mitzvah, or the reason for bar mitzvah. Do you have to have a bar bat mitzvah ceremony to become a bar mitzvah?
As opposed to what?
Being responsible, so bar mitzvah is a son of the commandments. Here bar is Aramaic, and so the Hebrew would be ben. And bat, daughter of the commandments. So you're gonna start taking responsibility for the mitzvot, for the commandments of Judaism. Are you responsible for those mitzvot if you don't have a ceremony?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So yes, so you become a bar bat mitzvah the day after your 13th birthday, regardless of if you have a ceremony or not. One of those things you can now be counted in a minyan. What's a minyan? Do you know?
10 people.
10 people. So sometimes you need 10 people for prayer, for certain prayers, or you need a gathering of 10 people. If we were Orthodox, it would be men. Happily, we are Temple Sinai, so it is people who are over age 13. But if you are 13 in a day, you're counted in the minyan, regardless if you've been up and read from Torah. So the ceremony, it's a ceremony. It's a rite of passage, but you still pass this threshold, regardless of the ceremony. And what do? Anybody know? Has anybody ever been to a bar bat mitzvah? I would hope that some of you have been to several. What do they have to do? They read from Torah. Yeah, they read from Torah.
They lead the ceremony.
They lead the service. At Temple Sinai, they pretty much lead the service. You go somewhere else and they may not do as much, but we have those kids lead almost the whole service.
They actually preach.
They do, they have to give a speech, and they have become much longer lately. They used to be very short. Now the kids actually are really teaching and doing a fine job of it, I must say.
I know we always say that, about mitzvahs here, growing up. I had a half Torah blessing before, a half Torah blessing after, and I was done. And then I had a roller skating party. That was the age, you had a roller skating party. But they do so much more now.
And here more, but even if you go to another Reform temple or anywhere else, our kids do a lot more than most do. But it's truly, they're taking the responsibility for the day. They're taking responsibility for all of this. And yeah.
One question.
Yes.
I've heard confirmation mentioned. Is that
So confirmation, we also have here, it's in 10th grade, at the end of 10th grade. Confirmation started as a Reform thing when the Reform movement didn't want to have bar bat mitzvah. The whole history of the Reform movement is a whole different day. But they brought in confirmation for boys and girls. And confirmation started before there was a bat mitzvah ceremony for girls. So confirmation has been around longer, but there was a way for someone who's older to really take responsibility. So here confirmation is in 10th grade, and if someone, they don't all continue, unfortunately, after a bar bat mitzvah or after 7th grade, even with me. But those that do after 10th grade, there's another ceremony, confirmation, to confirm that this is really what I want to do, and this is really who I am, as opposed to the bar mitzvah, which is like, okay, you're doing this. And they don't always have a say in it. Sometimes they do, because sometimes we have kids who join, or the kids tell the parents, we really should go to temple. I want to have a bar bat mitzvah, and they join and they do that. Not many, but there are a few kids who lead the push to come to school.
Is it at the beginning of the confirmation?
The confirmation is also, yeah, it happens during the holiday of Shavuot, and the kids come and they have to write a speech and they lead the service. It's also changed since, I've been here a long time, but the kids used to read from Torah, they used to read from Haftarah. The Haftarah for Shavuot is the book of Ruth, which we're going to talk about in terms, when we get, well, we can talk about now too, but the book of Ruth, because Ruth is thought of as the first convert to Judaism, and she really affirmed so much what her beliefs were, so Shavuot became the time for confirmation. But the kids still do. I'm not involved in it right now. I used to be more involved in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade program. But once that moved to Sunday morning, it used to be on Monday nights. Once it moved to Sunday morning, and I couldn't teach both. I've only been in 7th grade. So, but yeah, we have confirmation as well. And yes. Any questions or anything else about, so lumping coming of age together with confirmation and bar and bat mitzvah?
Yeah, is there, oh, this is more for babies, is there anything equivalent to like 100-day ceremony in Judaism?
No.
Like in some cultures, you'll do like 100-day-old, like days-old baby celebration, because they
No, that's
survived the
very
first
nice.
100 days.
I think that's beautiful, but no, I don't.
Okay.
There is another ceremony that in Reform Judaism we kind of overlook completely. When a boy turns 1 month old, and you have but not just a boy baby, the first issue of the mother's womb. So if this first boy in the family is not the first child, then you don't need to do this. An issue of the mother's womb, if the mother has a miscarriage, you don't have to do this. If there's a boy baby who is the first issue of the mother's womb, then you have, after 30 days, what's called the pidyon haben, the redeeming of the firstborn. Because there's a place in Torah where your firstborn is supposed to be pledged to temple service, to when there was a temple for a time. So instead now, pidyon haben, which is basically a little party, and you donate money to redeem your child. But yeah, I didn't do it with my older son. But I'm not sure how many conservative Jews still do it, but Orthodox would still do it. I grew up as a Reform Jew. I had never heard about it until my mother-in-law mentioned something. Are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know what it is. No, I'm not doing this. So also being mindful of our time. Wow. Okay. So moving in our life cycle, to jumping to the next event. And we didn't really talk about our pictures, but that's all right. We come to this marriage ceremony, bringing people together. It says in Bereshit, in our first portion of Torah, that it's not good for a person to be alone. They should have a helpmate. Here we're thinking of the first person, and then there should be a second person for that first person. And people shouldn't be alone. So we have a ceremony to bring these people together. And there are a lot of wonderful rituals involved in the Jewish wedding. Some kind of quirky Jewish rituals involved in a Jewish wedding, but there's a lot of really wonderful things as well. So then one of the pictures was a chuppah. What is a chuppah? Wedding canopy. Sometimes it is a big talit, and people will put that on poles and hold it. Sometimes it's the poles. There's a tradition that when a baby is born, or in Israel, you plant a tree, and I get them wrong. It's a cedar and a cypress, and I get wrong which is for boys and which is for girls, but you plant the tree, and then when the tree grows, you use that tree for the poles for the chuppah. Yeah. Yeah, all kinds of fun little things. So we have a chuppah. What does the chuppah represent? Maybe.
The home.
Maybe your home. It's more the home, but it could be because God is all around you and could be part of your home. But it's traditionally thought of as like this home that you're going to be representing, or that to represent the home that you're going to be building. What else? Because there are a lot of pieces to a Jewish wedding to go through them all. I want to talk more. I want to spend more time on the end of life, because I think that's, but I don't want to overlook anything that's important when we talk about marriage. To crush the glass at the very end, and why?
Life is fragile.
Life is fragile, absolutely. It's also reminiscent of the destruction of both the first and the second temples, which we're going to talk about next week, because next week we do history finally. But it's also the fragility of life. It could mean so many things. Just like when we interpret Torah, there is no one interpretation. There's everything is correct and nothing is incorrect. So same thing when we interpret these traditions. Why? So we break the glass. Often it's a light bulb because it's wrapped up. It's easier. The pieces are easier. Ellen.
That one picture, was that the Bedekin with the,
I didn't have a picture of a bedekin. This picture?
yeah.
This is not the bedekin ceremony. This is a Yemenite bride. Just, I wanted to show what a Jewish bride looks like in another tradition. So many Mizrahi and Sephardi, but more Middle Eastern Jewish communities have these elaborate headdresses and things, and there'll be often a henna ceremony, henna that you can paint. So there's often a henna ceremony. I'm not sure how many days before the wedding, and they'll often wear something more traditional for the henna ceremony, and because brides like to wear white because it seems more traditional. Nowadays they'll wear this, but this is a more traditional Yemenite bride costume. The bedekin, I don't think I have actually a picture of the bedekin, but what is it? Does anyone know what that is? Ellen, did you?
When they lift the veil to make sure that.
They actually, they don't have, you can lift it, but it's often there is no veil first. So there's a story in Torah coming up. This one hasn't happened yet because we're still in our Torah cycle. But Jacob, we've heard of Jacob, and he falls so deeply in love with this beautiful woman named Rachel. And he promises Rachel's father, who happens to be his uncle. We've got all kinds of interesting family tree dynamics going on in the beginning of Torah. His mother, Rachel's father, is Jacob's mother's brother, his uncle. But he promises his uncle Laban that he will work for 7 years to marry Rachel. So he does. He works there for 7 years, waiting to marry Rachel. Finally, the 7 years are up. Wedding ceremony. He's so happy. But the next morning, oh no, lo and behold, he's married Rachel's older sister, Leah. Goes to his father-in-law and says, what happened? What did you do? He says, well, we have a custom here that the younger can't get married before the older. So he still wants to marry Rachel, work another 7 years for me, and you can marry Rachel. Two different interpretations of the Torah. If we look at the Hebrew text, we'll see, does he have to wait another 7 years to marry Rachel? Or does he only have to wait a week until the ceremony, all of the ceremonial days of the first wedding are over, marry Rachel and then work the 7 years? It depends who interprets the Torah. We have both interpretations, but Jacob marries both Leah and Rachel. And so it's because of this that then there's this bedecken to check that you have the right bride. So the ceremony and it's done differently in the Ashkenazi and the Sephardi tradition. The Ashkenazi tradition, the bride is sitting there waiting, the groom comes and he looks at the bride. Sometimes she has the veil on and then he lifts it up, and sometimes she doesn't have the veil. He looks to make sure and then he covers her face with a veil. And in the Sephardi tradition, I think they just peek and look and see. But either way, the groom is gonna, and there are some times though that this, with arranged marriage, that this is the first time that he's even seeing the bride. So how does he even know if it's the right bride? Because it's arranged, but they still do this bedecken ceremony. Yeah. Kind of fun. There's all kinds of fun and quirky little things that go along with a Jewish wedding, and we don't have time for all of them if we want to get through the rest of the life cycle. But if there are any other questions or anything about, and we can come back to the wedding ceremony if we have time afterwards. Actually, one more thing I wanted to talk about the get, because some of you may not have there was a scroll, a get there. What is a get? Ellen?
Jewish divorce.
Is it Jewish divorce? Yes, I had both the Jewish wedding and the Jewish divorce. A get is a Jewish divorce. Divorce is not, in some religions, it's like, no, you can never get divorced. Here, there are times when it doesn't work. And you can have a Jewish divorce, in some very strict, ultra-Orthodox communities, it is not as easy as others, but divorce is not frowned upon in Judaism, which is just also kind of nice to know. So we get to the end of life. Let's talk about that, because there's a lot more that we want to talk about with the end of life. Because our beautiful Jewish traditions do two really important things when we look at Jewish rituals at the end of life. One, we take care of the person who has passed. And doing this is one of the ultimate mitzvot, because you can get nothing back. Not that when we do a mitzvah, we expect something in return. So some people like to get something in return when they do something good. But when you do something for someone who's passed, you can't even imagine that there could be some sort of return. So doing this, if you, anything that is done, whether it's guarding the body, whether it's participating in the funeral, however it is, you're honoring the dead. Kavod hamet, the honor of the dead. But there's a bigger piece when someone passes, and that's those who are still here. And most of the rituals we have are here for us to take care of the living. Because everything, that life is so important. Life is the most important thing that we have. Because as we're going to see after a few minutes of talking about this, when we talk about what's next after that, we don't know. Lots of possibilities, but we don't know. So we have this life. And we have to take care of this life and all the people that we know and that we care about in this life. So when someone passes, there are two pieces: to honor the dead and take care of them, but to put our focus on the living and helping them through what they're going through, and to be there and be a comfort for the mourners. So it's, at the beginning, it becomes intertwined when a person passes. It's all intertwined, the initial pieces of the guarding of the body. They're called shomrim, those who guard, just to get back to those who are in beginning Hebrew with our root, shin mem resh, which is to guard, they're shomrim. And going through the initial funeral is for the dead person to take care of them. But after that, it's all about the person and the people, the family members who are still here and what we can do for them. Starts immediately after with a meal and then with a shiva. And what is a shiva? You sit, yeah, and how long?
7 days.
Yeah, so we have our word, the shiva comes from the word sheva, which is 7. And we're gonna sit. But lashevet is also to sit, so we can kind of put it there, but it's not quite about the sitting, but it's about sitting. Orthodox, you're gonna sit on a wooden chair on the floor. We don't always have to quite do that. But people come. And when you go to a shiva house, you traditionally don't ring the doorbell and say, hey, let me in. You just walk right in. Doors open, you come in, and you go, and you are just there. And just being a comfort, often bringing something, because we don't want those who are here to have to worry about anything. So we bring food, we bring comfort. And I think there's generally nowadays shiva hours, they may not be for all 7 days. But we go when we do that. So the first period of mourning is for 7 days. But then we have this period shloshim, which is 30. The first 7 days are part of the shiva, are part of this, the first 7 days of this shloshim, of the 30 days. But in those first 30 days of mourning, there's still restrictions. Let the mourner take it really easy. We're gonna say Kaddish. Now, Kaddish we think of as a prayer to remind ourselves of our loved ones. It is a prayer to remind ourselves of our loved ones. But if we read that prayer, there's nothing about death in that prayer. It's a prayer about the awesomeness of God and how we want to praise God even though God is beyond all of our praises. Because that can give us comfort. And it can give comfort if we start talking about what could possibly happen after they're gone. Saying the Kaddish could be important to help them and move on if that's something that we believe, which we can talk about in our last 2 minutes. If it is a parent who has passed, then the period really goes to 11 months when you're going to still can still say Kaddish and still be in a period of mourning. For other family members, it is 30 days for a spouse, for a child, for a sibling. And it's not that we don't mourn other relatives and friends, but we're not obligated as giving the name of a mourner unless it's a first degree relative of a spouse, a parent, a sibling, or a child. But if it's your parent, then you're going to be a mourner for 11 months. Why not 12? Well, because nobody's going to be that bad. No, that's if we have in our last 2 minutes to talk about what could possibly happen afterwards. Judaism has so many possibilities of what could happen because we don't really know what happens after we die. But has anyone ever seen the movie Defending Your Life? Albert Brooks, Meryl Streep. You should. Good movie. Defending Your Life. Albert Brooks, who's hilarious, and Meryl Streep, who's wonderful. But that is a Jewish version of what could happen after you die. We used to show that movie to the 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, talking about life cycle, like to show them that this is possibly what could happen. And basically the movie is, they've died and they're in this like waiting area before you know what to move on. So in Judaism, because nobody is perfect, and hopefully no one is completely evil either, but when we pass, we have to make atonement for some of those wrongs that we've made. And this is just one Jewish belief. And in this time where you're making atonement for that, your family members are saying Kaddish for you and helping you to move on. So your parents, nobody should have to be so bad that they're in this holding place for a year, but for some reason you just want to make sure, so your parents are moving on, so you go 11 months, so you're going to say Kaddish. But this holding period holding place is what this movie is all about. And looking back, and Albert Brooks has to defend his life without defending your life. So it's almost like you're making, that's why it becomes a Jewish belief in the afterlife, because it's this making atonement, making amends for the things that you've done wrong. And then you move on. So we still don't know afterwards where they move on. But then you move on and what that could be. And then again, what that means could be so many things in Judaism. We don't really have a day to talk afterlife, but it is kind of interesting. Questions about anything?
Well, I know what, I just said with Shiva,
Mhm.
and probably a lot of things that I know probably is, group conservative,
Mhm.
but I just remember this, because this just happened to a temple member, actually, who passed away right before Rosh Hashanah.
So the period of Shiva, yes. So if you have a holiday, it ends the Shiva period. It may be cut short because because holidays are so important. Yeah, and there's gonna be a Shabbat in your Shiva at some point, and it's still, I think some of the rules are not there for Shabbat because it's Shabbat, but yeah, a period of mourning can end because of a holiday. And I think the rules are probably, it's probably in there. If not, I can find it.
Mhm.
It's usually somewhere else. Yeah, good question. Ellen, you had a question? No.
Different, but,
Different is good.
why do they do that, Sharon? They're what, the boy when he's 3 years old?
Oh, that's a good question. If you took over. So she's talking about the Ushparim when a little boy at 3 years old gets his first haircut. So this is Orthodox traditional. Little boys don't have a first haircut until they're 3 years old. Why? I'm not really sure. It didn't start until wasn't really written down to Middle Ages. But possibly because in Torah, when it talks about planting a fruit tree, you don't eat the fruit for the first 3 years. So, I mean, that's one tradition or one reason why they say that they do this. But yeah, little boys don't get their first haircut until they're 3 years old, and then there's a little ceremony, and but that's much more Orthodox. But if you ever see some little Orthodox kids, a kid that they're gonna dress as a boy, but with long hair, it's because it's under 3. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
There's also some other Asian countries where the reason they do that is because they don't want to distinguish anything between girls and boys until that age. And so when they come of age, it's when you're allowed to acknowledge it, but it's part of the ritual of they dress the same until a certain age.
That's nice. Yeah, that's not the same.
Not the same.
Not the same. No. But there are all kinds of interesting, quirky things. Any other questions? No, if you ever have any, please feel free to ask. Or even if it's a different, in class, if it's a different class, you can ask other questions, or you can email and ask me to talk about it next time. I can, all of that is good.
I was just curious about some specific pictures were. Number 5, was that a marriage certificate?
Oh, the pictures, number 5 is a ketubah, yes, a marriage, it's actually a contract, a ketubah is a real binding legal contract, or Jewish law legally binding. Yes, it is. What other pictures do you have questions?
3.
Number 3, they're sitting Shiva. People are sitting Shiva. Yes. Any other, that was a good thing. Anybody else have any other questions about the pictures? Thank you so much for coming and for being with us tonight. Nancy, thank you for joining us on Zoom.
Hey, yeah, I'll try to be there next time.
If the weather's bad, Zoom works.
Okay.
Next week, we're talking history from the very beginning up through the expulsion from Spain, 1492. Yeah, oh no, it's actually through the Enlightenment past that. We're going through the Enlightenment. I might not get that far, I might only get to the expulsion of Spain, but we're doing history. Thank you. You're welcome, thank you for coming.